Well, welcome everybody to another edition of Lewis at Large. Yours truly, Warner Lewis from the flight deck, and of course that means some smart talk radio is in your future, and this one is going to be a good one. We do not speak often of aliens, certainly not of alien abduction. We sort of have relegated that to the nutcase file, but this one's going to be a little bit different. Got a good one going here. We're going to be talking to Ron Felber. He's a former CEO of an industrial chemical company, but most recently and most importantly, he's been a fairly prolific author of 7 novels, 5 nonfiction books, including the Jack Madsen crime thriller series and Il Doctore, the basis for the television series The Mob Doctor. We're pleased to have him here. Brand new work called The Mojave Incident. Ron, how are you, my friend?
Just great. Good to hear your voice, Warner.
Good. Glad to have you here. Let's set some background here. When you think about alien abduction, people start to get nervous and think, oh, boy, who's he got on this week? But tell us a little bit the background of this interesting couple, Elise and Tom Gifford.
Yeah, in a lot of situations, what you tend to have with the alien abduction stories is even going back to the late 60s, I guess, with Betty and Barney Hill in Massachusetts, when this first started, this phenomenon, really first started and took public note. You have recovered memories where people are hypnotized, they have missing time, and they recover it. In the story of Tom and Elise Gifford, these are 2 professionals, college graduates with 2 kids at the time and 1 on the way. Very stable, intelligent, career-oriented, all of the things you would want in a good witness or in a stable personality, who had a sustained experience in the Mojave Desert, 8 hours conscious and together, seeing the same things moment to moment, even pinching themselves to make sure, do you see this, do you see that? And then 4 hours that were recovered later by Dr. William Annixter, who did retrogressive hypnosis for the FBI on many occasions and recovered 4 hours of time on the actual craft.
All right, answer the cynics out there that are going, why do these things always happen in the desert? Why don't they happen at 3rd, 325 Elmwood Lane in, Shaker Heights, Ohio?
Yeah. But what if I told you that Jimmy Carter reported a UFO and reported it to the Air Force, and Ronald Reagan on Air Force One saw a UFO and reported it? So it's not as strange or as isolated as you might think. In this case, I think there's a certain charm about the Mojave Desert, and perhaps it's the minerals that are there. A lot of them are mined by companies like Alumax and are used in laser weaponry, for example.
How did you guys get linked up? How did you get linked up with these people?
Well, as you had mentioned in the introduction, I was the CEO of a fairly large company with a sales force of, maybe 150 people. So one of them was a fellow named Paul Moran, one of our best guys and a friend. And we got to be friendly through work and business. And he told me about, since he knew I was a writer, about his best friend, who he had played football with in college, and who was an all-state football player in California, who had this experience, didn't want to talk about it, didn't have any, conception of writing a book about it, was relatively disoriented and almost ashamed of the experience. They didn't want to talk about it, but he convinced me. I wasn't terribly enthusiastic about the topic, to meet them, and I did. And really, once I heard the story and saw the specificity, the detail, and how credible these people were, you just have to take it seriously.
When I'm just curious, when you interviewed them or you met them for the first time, were they in any way, shape, or form sort of embarrassed about this sort of, we're really not nutcases, we're real people?
Yeah, and that's, you see, here's a fellow that was a project manager for a construction company. So, he's building malls and shopping centers, with large budgets and a lot of directing a lot of people. It's not like people go out of their way to say, please let me have an experience like this that changes my life, that rattles the doors of my existence and my children's existence and my spouse's existence. It isn't that way at all. And so they barely told their parents about it. But when I did bring them to the National Center of Psychiatry in Washington, D.C., to be studied by the director there, a fellow named Bernard Vitone, Dr. Bernard Vitone, they had all of the symptoms of POWs, sexual dysfunction, insomnia, really wrecks, lack of ability to concentrate. It changed their lives.
Well, if you would share with our listeners, tell us, if to the extent that you can, in as much detail as you can, exactly what happened.
You know, I have a very short quote, and I don't know if I'm hoping that won't trouble you, but it's from Tom Gifford, and he describes how this first happened. They were isolated in the desert. He was going hunting, and they couldn't get a campsite, a Mid-Hills campsite, at the outskirts of the desert, so they actually went in that night. They've cooked up some steaks. They had a campfire. They're roasting marshmallows, when all of a sudden, the strangest thing that you could ever imagine, the most horrifying thing you could ever imagine. Here's a quote. When we first saw them dropping from the sky, we thought it was some kind of military maneuver, maybe for Operation Desert Storm, but it was too massive even for that. I mean, there were thousands of them falling. These would be the UFOs, then rushing toward us. So I kicked out the campfire, grabbed my gun, and ran into the back of the camper with Elise. Then we sat there, Indian style, waiting until they came. Thousands of them. Thousands of pairs of tiny red eyes glowing in the dark around us.
Right. Well, all right. So now they're in their camper, sort of hiding. Tell us what happens from there.
Well, again, if you don't mind, I have an actual description.
Sure.
So together they sat holding each other, too frightened to move, too frightened until it began, slowly at first, like parachutes floating, free-falling downward. So they stared, captivated by the prospect, as dozens, hundreds of glowing white objects traveled like falling stars down across the onyx sky. Then they actually sit in the camper, holding each other. So they first think it's the Russians. It's an invasion of some kind. They think that the country's being invaded. And then Tom Gifford kicks out the campfire. Get in the truck, he screams to Elise. I'll put the fire out so they won't see us. Get in the truck. So here's basically what they do. They run into the camper. There are two sort of, I guess, holograms, you might call them, electrical force fields that hold them there. So when he or she moves forward, they move forward to an equal degree. And when they try to get out, there's an electric shock that they get. They get jolted by electricity. Outside the camper, while they're sitting there, him with a shotgun across his lap, these illuminated beings circle and circle the camper. A huge UFO, again the size of a football field, that actually domes the valley, is above them. They have another sort of a mining vehicle. They call it a searcher. It's like a triangular vehicle that's combing the desert basin, looking for minerals, sucking up minerals, things of that nature, rare metals perhaps. But it's busy doing that, while these illuminated beings, like a syringe, suck the thoughts and emotions out of their heads, put them through various traumatic experiences they've had in their life, and study them. And so they're actually reliving some of the most terrifying or exalting moments in their lives.
Okay, now besides all of this sort of mayhem that's going on around them, were they abducted, or were they just held there, or were they taken away?
Actually, they're held there for 8 hours, literally, again, pinching one another, comparing notes. One would kind of zone out and get absorbed in this experience that they were reliving in their mind, and that these beings are pulling from them telepathically. But then after the onslaught is over, they have 4 hours or so. They find themselves outside the camper with the fire doused. And it's through hypnosis that some of the most detailed and wild things you could imagine come out, because they did spend hours on the craft itself.
Ken, if you just joined us, yours truly, Warner Lewis from the flight deck of Lewis at Large Radio. We are talking to Ron Felber. He is a prolific author and got a brand new work out called The Mojave Incident, which we've been talking, the adventures of Elise and Tom Gifford and their experience with aliens in the Mojave Desert. And I guess, Ron, one of the things that comes to mind immediately, you're reporting this story. To what extent do local and or national authorities or military or, Center for the Studies of UFOs, et cetera, have they become involved or taken depositions, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I'm going to be appearing on, this is one of the first interviews I've done on the book. It just really now came out. But I do have a couple of interviews scheduled with people from MUFON, et cetera.
Do you, is this, I mean, when you, and again, I know your specialty is not necessarily writing about alien abduction, but in the research that you've done, does their experience mirror other ones that have been reported?
Well, as far as the craft itself and that, I mentioned that the former governor of Arizona had talked about a craft and described it, a huge craft, and that would mirror. What I think you have here is descriptions of the aliens themselves that are incredibly detailed, and again, something that's sustained consciously and unconsciously, and not just one person, but two people seeing the same things, which rules out hallucination, by the way. For example, if they had taken mescaline or peyote or LSD, they would have different hallucinations. But sitting in the back of the camper as they were, they thought they were going to die. And when they did start to hyperventilate or appear to have something approaching a heart attack, a kind of mist would fill the truck like an anesthetic that would calm them. But I find that this matches elements of other stories. But again, it's the detail and the fact that it's so sustained, that it's for such a long period of time that makes it, I think, totally unique.
Now, and again, we haven't referenced this yet, how long ago did this happen?
This happened in 1989, in October of 1989.
Okay, any reason why it's taken quite so long for all this to come to light?
Well, I did take them to Washington, D.C., to the National Center of Psychiatry to be studied. I also took them to Asheville, North Carolina, to meet with South Carolina, to meet with Dr. William Annixter to be retrogressed. So there was a lot of research involved, including a polygraph test, etc. And again, this was something that required various hypnosis sessions and a lot of interviewing. We videotaped the interviews, and so it's really well documented. I have a little section that maybe would be of interest to you from the hypnosis section that describes some of the beings. Would that be of interest?
Yeah.
All right. Here's Tom. I'm fighting, and resisting them in the camper. Tom is suddenly agitated. Elise is grasping for my hand as she's being pulled away. They're white all over, and I'm fighting. He throws his head to one side. I want to remember things about that, but the memories don't seem concrete, more like images. Suddenly, Elise's voice rings out with a volume and hysteria that set our teeth on edge. Bug eyes, she screamed. Annixter, the doctor, swung around to her. Say more. It's one of the white ones, she said, perplexed. Then in a panicked voice, can't move. I'm just scared. She begins crying. I want to go home now. She weeps, chest heaving. Long fingers, she added, suddenly tense as she sees it. There's three, around my face, almost touching, but not touching it. What's on the other side of the fingers? Annixter prods. Light. White light. I remember this hallway, all lit up in blue light, even in the ground. I guess I'm walking, but it doesn't feel like I'm walking. It's like a tunnel, until finally there's an opening. Anyway, the detail is really quite amazing, I think, and some of the descriptions, I mean, really set your teeth on edge.
Yeah, Ron. Other than working with you, are the Giffords talking about this publicly? Have they gone public now with the publication of your new book, or what's that story? Yeah,
as I said, these are not sensationalist kind of people. They're quiet. They have their careers, and as a matter of fact, Tom and Elise Gifford is not their real name. They have young children, and some in their teens. And from their standpoint, again, this isn't something that they jumped up and down trying to get published or printed. There's some very intimate details about some of the experiences that they were made to recapture and relive that are very personal, but still in the book, because this comes actually from the taped interviews and from the taped hypnosis sessions. But so they're sort of sitting this one out. They really became very religious and got involved very deeply with the Mormon faith for a period of time, and they really just had to stabilize their lives. And now that it's passed, and now that they've sort of lived through this, I think this book is something that has been helpful to them. I think it'll be helpful to people that are UFO enthusiasts and even skeptics. But it's not something they're going to be going on talk shows and talking about.
Well, it is a fascinating subject. We have always looked to the sky and wondered what is really out there. They friend, foe, or fantasy, as they say. And it sounds to me like this incident was almost a little bit on the faux side, a little bit, but again, other than psychologically probably not necessarily scarred, but certainly affected for life, they were not physically injured beyond any of that. Is that correct?
Well, actually, there was a probe. They were probed and they were examined, so that was physical. Also, Elise Gifford, during the hypnosis session, kept rubbing her neck, and when the doctor really pressed her on that topic, she said, "Probes. This is how they follow us."
Wait, when they say this is how they follow us, tell me what you mean by that.
Well, they feel like they're being watched. And from a psychiatric standpoint, that could be just, again, sort of a POW syndrome, where when you have a tremendous trauma, every creak in a house, every plumbing pipe that makes a noise seems pretty ominous. But she genuinely believed and had marks on her neck that a probe was inserted into her.
So again, these are what you've done. Tom and Elise are fictional names, but this is a real couple. Yep. Any particular reason why they felt they were chosen, or were they just in the wrong place, so to speak, at the wrong time?
Well, Steve, the husband, Tom, had an experience when he was a kid, maybe 8 years old, fishing with another kid, and had at least seen a UFO and felt that there maybe was some more to that, and that perhaps he had been watched for quite some time. Elise Gifford makes it very clear in the hypnosis session that these beings do not have emotions like we do. And so what they did to them and what they wanted were people that were normal, average, not geniuses and not fools, average, normal people, children, families, etc., so that they could learn more about human emotions, human intelligence, and how to address humans in a way that if there was an encounter on a massive scale, it wouldn't produce hysteria.
Do you think, that, again, this group of aliens that were encountered, the Giffords, do you think reports of other alien encounters like this on the planet Earth are coming from the same, so to speak, colony or the same area of extraterrestrial? Or are these all different kinds of extraterrestrials from all different kinds of spots in the universe, just happening for whatever reason to choose Earth?
And again, during the hypnosis session, she talks about 5 galaxies, and it's really so strange and bizarre to see how this comes about. The doctor really probed it and had to get at it because she said, "I can't remember, I'm not supposed to remember, etc." But then talked about 5 galaxies and talked about sort of a one supreme, a sort of supreme being that governs over it. And it was almost like it had religious connotations to some extent. And at the end, when they really thought they were going to die and when they thought they were going to have heart attacks or lose their minds, an almost angelic presence calmed them. And it was almost like a Marian visitation. So there's a lot of aspects to this story, and I don't pretend to have all the answers, but it's a story that needs to be looked at and studied. I look at it as a crack in the wall where you gain an insight into another realm of existence.
So you've done a lot of different writing about a lot of different subjects. Has this piqued your interest in this particular subject and you want to do more, or are you moving on down the road subject-wise?
Well, I've got another book that I have to have written by contract, but certainly I'll say this. This is a story that makes you question man's place in the universe. And certainly it's had that effect on me.
Well, again, the work is called The Mojave Incident by Ron Felber. Ron, share with our Lewis at Large listeners, if you would, if you've got a website where some of the work that you do, and also how can they get a copy of the book?
Sure, thanks so much. It's just www.ronfelber.com. So that's an easy one, ronfelber.com. And the book is available right now on Amazon through the Internet, Barnes & Noble through the Internet, and it'll be in bookstores later this week. Well,
best of luck to you, and would love to have you back on again.
Thanks so much. It was a pleasure.
You bet. We will be back with more right after this on Lewis at Large.